Hi, and welcome to our webinar, Youth Social Emotional Learning. I'm Maggie Reagan, Senior Editor for Books for Youth at Booklist. Before we begin, I'd like to go over a few technical details. Links to today's slide presentation and title list were included in the reminder email you received from Zoom 1 hour ago. To download them, please open that email, scroll to the bottom, and click on the links located there. You can also download the slides and title list by typing the URLs on this screen into your web browser. If you have any trouble accessing these materials, please contact us at webinars@booklistonline.com. The audience is in listen-only mode, but we welcome any questions you may have. On the bottom of your screen is a toolbar with a button for Q&A. If you have a question or need technical assistance, simply click Q&A and type your message into the box that appears. We will do our best to respond to all tech-related questions, and we will pass along all other questions to today's panelists so they can follow up with you after the webinar. Booklist offers closed captioning on all webinars. To enable or disable captions on your screen, please look for and click the captions icon on the toolbar mentioned before. From there, you can select show or hide captions from the menu that appears. If you choose to enable subtitles, you can adjust the size of the captions at any time by selecting caption settings. Finally, Booklist expects all participants to maintain an atmosphere of respect and fairness. Anyone who violates this standard of behavior, including in engaging in any form of harassment, may, at the discretion of the organizers, be immediately removed. Today, we have the pleasure of hearing from Laura Lutz, Children's School and Library Marketing Manager for Hachette Book Group, Donna Spurlock, Marketing Director at Charlesbridge Publishing, Sarah Hall, Global Brand Marketing Manager, and Sarah Rucker, Sales Director, both for Usborne Books, and Joe Stacy, Digital Marketer for James Lorimer and Company. First up, we'll hear from Laura Lutz. Laura is the Children's School and Library Marketing Manager for Hachette Book Group. Prior to working in publishing, she was a school librarian in New York City for 8 years, as well as working in public libraries across the country. Laura served on both the 2022 Caldecott Award and the 2017 Newbery Award committees. She has also reviewed books for the New York Times and School Library Journal. Thanks so much for joining us, Laura.
Hi, everyone, and welcome. I'm happy to start things off. My name is Laura Lutz, and I'm the manager of Children's School and Library Marketing at Hachette Book Group. And I'm so excited to share our latest and greatest titles dealing with social emotional learning and mental wellness. As a former school librarian who worked in person during the pandemic, I'm so aware of the need for SEL-related books for young people. And these are all titles I would have loved to have had available when I was teaching. Additionally, as I share our titles, I think we'll all have the same thought that these are great for young people, but I also know so many adults, myself included, who can use some of these tips themselves. So without further ado, let's begin. Next slide, please. I'm going to start with resources for younger readers. Next slide. The first book I'm excited to share with you is Sticks versus Stones. Best friends Georgina and George are in the middle of a fight. Although the title might give this away, Georgina believes sticks are better for building, and George believes that stones are better. Soon the argument escalates to shouts of, "I don't want to be your friend." "No, I don't want to be your friend." I think we can all probably relate to those sorts of discussion or those sorts of disagreements, both with the kids we work with and maybe kids in our own homes. And they go back and forth until two new friends show them a better way. Next slide. And as they argue, George and Georgina build grander and grander structures, resulting in delightfully whimsical depictions of castles and thrones built from sticks and stones. And they learn that working together is more fun than being right. This picture book makes for a laugh out loud read or storytime experience while showing kids the importance of having an open mind and being willing to consider someone else's point of view. And Sticks versus Stones is available now. Next slide. Sashiko is a young girl with very big feelings. When her mother teaches her about her namesake, the traditional Japanese practice of mending through embroidery, She finds an outlet for some of her big emotions. Next slide. With each, I just love these illustrations so much. With each stitch, the dark cloud around her lightens until her big fears begin to feel less scary. As she heals tears in the fabric, she begins to find a sense of calm and hope. This deeply resonant picture book explores the transformative power of creative expression as Shishiko finds peace in her newfound craft. The illustrations are lush, richly textured, and deeply evocative. As you can see, even on this screen, I feel like you can just see the beautiful textures. And there's also a lot of back matter that provides more information about the practice of Shishiko, including all the supplies you might need for any curious readers who might want to try it themselves. And they can discover Shishiko themselves because this title is available now. Next slide. How to stop freaking out. The ultimate guide to keeping cool when life feels chaotic. Fall apart, flip out, flip your lid, break down, melt down, explode, throw a tantrum, lose your temper, come unglued, go bonkers. There's so many different names for when we lose our cool because there are so many different ways for humans to lose it when life gets chaotic. Again, this is one of those books that we're talking about young people, but we could be talking about grown-ups too. Next slide. This book provides the tips, tricks, and tools to guide young readers through understanding what's happening in their bodies as their big emotions take over. Throughout, there are quizzes, truth bombs, freak out facts, and more to give young readers a moment to pause, reflect, and most importantly, to find a little humor in coming unglued. Next slide. Did I take this quiz in the book myself? Of course I did. Apparently, I'm a fixer. And also, too, for those of you who may be curious, when I, said there are quizzes, there are no blanks. So this isn't consumable. There aren't places to write in here. So there's no blank spaces. It all looks like the quizzes look like this. Dr. Carla Naumburg is a clinical social worker and the author of several parenting books, and her wise and humorous perspective will help young readers develop into resilient and confident humans. And this is available in September, just in time for a new school year. Next slide. Where do feelings come from? Are they magic? No, they're science. Children and grown-ups often learn about emotions separate and apart from biological processes. But there's a reason our tummies feel funny when we're worried and why we want to stomp and clench our fists when we're mad. Next slide. In the Magical Science of Feelings, clinical social worker Jen Daly breaks down the basics of brain science so that children can have a deeper ability to reflect, to cope, to enhance their own resilience, and to go closer with their grown-ups while becoming more self-sufficient. Next slide. Each section of the book, happy, sad, mad, worried, and overwhelmed, introduces the science behind that emotion with fun, friendly characters representing different parts of the brain. Next slide. Kids can further explore and manage their feelings by making emotion potions, such as anger volcano and sadness goo, and practicing creative coping skills from dancing to storytelling to meditation. And the book also shares skills that offer multiple entry points for varied learning and coping styles, including neurodiverse readers. And this pubs in June. Next slide. All right, and now we have some resources for older readers. Next slide. Oh, I love this book. One day, 7th grader Reese comes home to his worst nightmare. His dad is on the floor, his lips have turned blue, and he's overdosed again. Reese calls 911 and gets his dad out of danger. But for his mom, this is the breaking point. And she declares that she and Reese are leaving until Reese's dad gets real help. And this is so upsetting for Reese because he loves his dad so much. So he does not go willingly when his mom says that they're leaving. His dad starts doing better, holding things together. But how long can the good times last? In the US today, an estimated 1 in 8 kids live with a parent with a substance abuse problem. So the story is timely and necessary. Written with bracing honesty, deep sympathy, and tenderness for all of its characters, Breaking into Sunlight offers readers a powerful affirmation that no one's alone and comfort can be found in community and friendship. I like to tell people too that the ending of this is very realistic. It isn't all, it doesn't get sewn up nice and neat, like, oh, yay, his dad's all better now. It's much more nuanced than that. And which I think is just realistic and I think really respectful of the reader. In its star review, Booklist declared that, quote, this is an important novel for every library to have. Wise words from Booklist. Next slide. Words are powerful at any age. From the moment we start to talk, we're told to use our words. But using our words isn't just about asking for something. It's about communicating one's needs emotionally, spiritually, and practically, and connecting to the world around us. Harold Green III's Words Are My Superpower offers practical advice on how the words we choose have the power to change not just our own lives, but others. Some of the greatest villains in our lives include anxiety, fear, disappointment, and failure. But if we empower ourselves through language, employing affirmations, mantras, compliments, and more, we can overcome anything or anyone who stands in our way while lifting up those around us. Next slide. Harold Green III expertly weaves a metaphor about categories of words acting as superheroes throughout this guide to help readers harness the superpowers offered by optimism, gratitude, and more. Infused with Green's gorgeous poetry and Andrea Pippin's eye-catching illustrations, Words Are My Superpower teaches the importance of positive thinking and communication for young people to affect change. Next slide. Here I Am Me is an illustrated graphic novel style nonfiction adventure. That's a lot through the brain that demystifies and destigmatizes emotional and mental health. And I argue a necessary book in an age where young people feel increasingly disconnected and hopeless about the state of the world. As I said earlier, sometimes grown-ups too, right? Next slide. Each of the 9 chapters explores a different aspect of mental health. The book explains what's really going on in the reader's head in an accessible and approachable way, while never talking down to the reader. The graphic format's unique in that it allows for stylistic visual choices to show what's happening inside the brain, mind, and body in a much more visceral way than traditional print can. This is definitely recommended for ages 12 and up. It is skew older. Author illustrator Carrie Bean masterfully discusses crucial topics like depression, substance abuse, addiction, and suicide, all while equipping readers with mindfulness tips, specific resources, and empathetic affirmations. I'm extremely proud that we're publishing this title, and I think it's one that's needed on all shelves. Next slide. And that is it for Hachette Book Group. I've listed our socials here as well as my email address, so feel free to contact me if you have any questions or requests. Thank you so much and enjoy the rest of the webinar.
Thank you so much, Laura. Next up, we have Donna Spurlock. Donna is the marketing director at Charlesbridge Publishing. Prior to the publishing life, Donna was a bookseller and buyer at Rizzoli Bookstore in Boston. Donna studied theater at university and often pretends she's a voice actor for recorded books. Thank you so much for being here today, Donna.
Hi, everyone. I'm so glad to be here. And I'm excited to share some of our favorite titles for social emotional learning with you today. Let's start with an entire series dedicated to social emotional learning in partnership with the iconic Chicken Soup for the Soul. Chicken Soup for the Soul children's books impart life lessons that warm the heart with heaping spoonfuls of good humor. Our board books for ages 0 to 3 model important values for the littlest listeners through bold illustrations with lovable animal characters and realistic situations. Skills like patience, perseverance, sharing and turn-taking, generosity, gratitude, and inclusion take center stage. For the slightly older crowd, more life skills are modeled by the Sunshine Squad, a crew of friends who all live in the same apartment building at 123 Sunshine Street. These kids take a pledge to be superheroes in their community, sharing their unique skills in art, science, athletics, and of course, kindness to help each other and their neighbors. Kids ages 4 to 7 are ready for more complex topics like admitting wrongdoing and making amends, trying new skills and social groups, finishing chores, tackling group projects, and coping with disappointment. Listen First, Then Go is the newest installment in our Chicken Soup for the Soul Babies board book series. Grizzly Bear and Mountain Goat are going on a hike. This dynamic duo has a goal: make it to the top before sunset. But every time Grizz gives a direction, Goat is paying all his attention to the wonderful natural world around him and no attention to Grizz. This goes about as well as you'd expect. In the end, a well-timed apology and a real effort to do better and listen before going gets them to their goal in time. Listen First, Then Go is on sale September 3rd. Next up is Adela's Mariachi Band, releasing simultaneously in Spanish and English by Denise Vega with illustrations by Erica Rodriguez Medina. Adela is the littlest daughter of a mariachi family. She loves everything about it: the bright and bouncy music, the beautiful instruments, the swooshing and swirling dancers. Most of all, she loves los gritos, the shouts at the end of the song that bring the band and audience together in an outpouring of excitement. More than anything, Adela wants to be in the band, but she's just so little. Every time she tries, she falls short. It'll take years to be good enough at La Trompeta, La Vihuela, or El Baya to join her family on stage. But with the love and support of her family, Adela overcomes her frustration and finds her own unique way to bring the mariachi spirit into the world. This charming and vibrant story of playing to your strengths is on sale August 13th. Next, we have Squawk of Spanish, also available simultaneously in Spanish and English, by Gabriela Alderman and with illustrations by Romina Gala. Max loves his abuela and she loves him, but Max's Spanish just isn't that great. He can't even roll his R's. His cousins tease him about it all the time. Luckily, this grandmother-grandson duo has something in common that doesn't require any words: a love of cooking. Lorito the parrot always helps Abuela remember the recipe, squawking each ingredient in Spanish. But when Laredo goes missing in action the day before the county fair competition, it's Max's turn to be brave and try in Spanish to help Abuela. Squawk of Spanish has so much to unpack: the complexity of a bilingual family, the love and culture expressed in food, and the courage to persevere at a difficult skill. And those teasing cousins, well, it's pretty hard for them to tease with their mouths full of delicious arroz con leche. This title is on sale August 13th. Next up, Rostam's Picture Day Pristine by Ryan Bani Thomasep with illustrations by Fatima Mokles poses an age-old dilemma. Picture Day is here, and your parents want you to wear something you feel weird about wearing. Rostam and his maman are new to the States, and they're still waiting for Baba to come over from Iran and join them. Rostam likes his classmates and friends from soccer, but he's worried they'll make fun of him if he wears his Baba's Pustine for Picture Day. It's a beautiful vest, soft on the inside, embroidered with colorful flowers. It would mean a lot to his maman and Baba if he wore it. So Rostam goes in wearing it. And it's a hit. His classmates are captivated by the embroidery and the fluffy wool lining. So many of them want to try it on that they line up. And when Rostam sits down for his picture, he has the biggest smile on his face. The sweet picture book acknowledges the nerves that come with sharing part of your heritage while celebrating the joy and pride of being welcomed by your community. Rostam's Picture Day Pristine is on sale July 16th. Let's take a look at Clack, Clack, Smack, a Cherokee stickball story by award-winning author Tracy Sorrell and illustrator Joseph Erb. Stickball is an action-packed traditional Cherokee game. Today, it's Eagles versus Redhawks, and Van is having a hard time keeping up. He tries to be a good teammate like his friend Jesse, but he's not as fast or as good at scoring. Coach calls the team over for a water break and reminds them about Gaduji. Teamwork is important to the Cherokee people in all parts of life, stickball especially. In the end, Van finds that he doesn't have to be the best player in order to be the best teammate he can be, and there are all kinds of ways to help win a game. In their starred review, Kirkus says, "Stand and cheer for this fast-paced tale of sportsmanship and community." Back matter includes a glossary of Cherokee words and more information about stickball and the Cherokee language. Clack Clack Smack is available August 6th. Next up, Dear You, Dream Big by Baptiste Paul with illustrations by Tony D. Chambers. It's an anthemic celebration of Black excellence. Your dreams are more than thoughts and ideas. They are the pathways that make the impossible possible. Baptiste Paul's ode to the power of dreaming encourages Black kids to aim high and find resilience in the face of adversity. This lyrical book follows 3 kids who dream of careers in the arts, political leadership, and the sciences. Though they are met with discrimination, both present and historical, they hold on to their dreams, keep working, and find a way to achieve their goals. A note in the back matter from the author pays tribute to his mother, who, though illiterate herself, encouraged her son to focus on his education and dream beyond the limits of his family's circumstances. Dear You, Dream Big is on sale May 14th. Translated from the original Spanish edition by Luisana Duarte Armendariz, The Letter by Irene Verdu with illustrations by Veronica Aranda is a heartwarming tale of a message gone astray, or maybe not so astray after all. Mr. Cat is a grouchy loner, but his attitude changes when an anonymous letter blown down his chimney reveals the amazing news. Somebody loves him. Now, every time he sees a neighbor, he has to wonder, did they send the letter? Is this the person who secretly loves me? Filled with excitement, he does his best to help them. But whether they're distracted, flustered, or simply in a hurry, each neighbor leaves without even thanking Mr. Cat. Let down, Mr. Cat returns home to find his neighbors waiting with thank you gifts. This warm story about acts of kindness is also a wonderfully kid-friendly way to talk about cognitive reframing, the power of shifting your feelings and actions by adopting a new mindset. As for the letter, it's off in the wide world again, looking for the next person whose life it could change. The Letter is on sale September 3rd. Our next title is also translated, this time from the original German by Elizabeth Lofer. In the Winter Woods by Daniela Kulat is a charming tale of a woodland community and the importance of cooperation. It's winter, and all the creatures are so hungry. Anything would do, a worm, a bone, a shriveled up berry. But it's winter, and winter is not willing to share. Squirrel, on the other hand, has a secret stash of treats he hid last autumn. Nuts and seeds, dried fruits, mushrooms, all that anyone could wish for in the bitter cold. And squirrels will be squirrels. He is not willing to share. Just one problem, he can't actually find his stash. Like real squirrels in the wild, who lose up to 74% of their buried nuts, Squirrel has forgotten where he left his delicious treats. With help from all the animals, crow searching in the air, fox on the forest floor, squirrel in the trees, and mouse among the roots, they track down the missing stash and share a meal, knowing that without everyone working together, everyone would have gone hungry. In the Winter Woods is on sale October 15th. Let's wrap up with something that the grown-ups in the room will relate to. Squirrel Needs a Break by Kristen Reminar with illustrations by Matt Faulkner is a deeply charming story about a single dad in need of a break and the community that pulls together to help him. Squirrel and his 3 rambunctious kids have been stuck inside all winter, and Squirrel needs a break desperately. So his woodland friends team up to plan a day of self-care. They'll take turns watching the kids and spending time doing something relaxing with Squirrel. The mirrored structure of this book amps up the comedy while underscoring the message that self-care is for everyone. Hare takes Squirrel out to the spa while Sparrow gives the kits a splashy bubble bath. Then Groundhog goes to a yoga class with Squirrel, while Owl tries and fails to teach the kids to meditate. When the day is through, Squirrel's friends have a whole new level of appreciation for all the hard work he puts into being a dad, and the little family is thrilled to reunite at a cozy celebration. Squirrel Needs a Break is on sale May 7th. Thank you so much for joining us. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me at dspurlock@charlesbridge.com. You can find videos, downloadables, and more on our website at charlesbridge.com/SEL webinar. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Donna. Next up, we'll hear from Sarah Hall and Sarah Rucker. Sarah Hall is Global Brand Marketing Manager for Usborne, based in London. Before working in publishing, she was an elementary school teacher and loved nothing more than creating a welcoming reading space for the children she taught. Her favorite books as a child were Lemony Snicket's A Series of Unfortunate Events and anything by Jacqueline Wilson or Roald Dahl. So much so that she volunteered as a school librarian to get extra reading time in and be in charge of the fingerprint scanner to check books in and out. Sarah Rucker is the sales director for Usborne Books at HarperCollins. She has been in the publishing industry for over 30 years and is the proud daughter of a librarian. She began working with children's books 10 years ago and thinks it's the best job in the world. Her favorite books as a child were Edgar Eger's Magic series and Enid Blyton's Mallory Towers series. The floor is yours, Team Usborne.
Thank you. I'm your first Sarah of the presentation, and I'm going to start by giving you a background to who we are and what we do. So we at Usborne, we're a family-owned independent children's publisher founded in 1973. Next slide, please. We celebrated a big birthday last year. It was a milestone year for us as we marked 50 years of being one of the most successful brands in children's publishing, recognised by our iconic rainbow-coloured hot air balloon. We are UK-based but operate globally and publish our books all around the world with over 3,000 titles in print. Last year also marked an exciting change in our US publishing model as we started a new trade distribution agreement with HarperCollins. We are working very closely alongside Harper to bring our books to more children across America than ever before, and we're delighted with how that relationship is evolving. So a bit about our books. We create irresistible, engaging, and accessible children's books for every age, stage, and interest. We have a full spectrum of titles on many different subjects from birth to 12+. We have quite a unique editorial model at Usborne. All our books are meticulously crafted in-house by our expert writers and editors and are written in a very distinctive Usborne way that parents trust and children love. And one way that we do this is by coming at the world from a kid's point of view. All our books are written in their language and designed for their curious eyes. We believe that by keeping children front of mind, it helps us to be the best that we can be. Usborne books always encourage children to explore the world around them, asking plenty of questions along the way, celebrated by our company tagline of Be Curious. And hopefully you'll see that from the books that we share with you today. Next slide, please. Social emotional learning is a key theme for Usborne in many of the books we publish. We see it as a critical stage in a child's development and of great importance to future success and good mental health. But we know it's not always straightforward, and many children and many adults struggle to express and recognise their emotions. Introducing these concepts through early reading experiences is critical, and as you can see, we have identified some of the key SEL themes which appear in our books, and these will be shown next to each series they apply to and act as hopefully a helpful key throughout. Next slide. So first up, we have our All About series. These books are fun, friendly, and reassuring introductions to important social topics. They are 32-page picture books aimed at the 4 to 7 age group, which explore people, relationships, emotions, and how to navigate them. These are great discussion books suitable for both home and classroom, with beautiful, relatable illustrations that introduce big topics in a safe and accessible way. All books include notes and tips for grown-ups at the back of the book, as well as Usborne quick links, where you can visit our website to find links to websites and activities that help expand the topics further. There's also a teaching resource pack for these books, which will soon be available under the relevant titles on our website. And I'm now going to share with you some spreads from upcoming titles coming later this year. Next slide. So in this spread from All About Worries and Fears, it explores what happens when our worries and fears start small, but then grow and grow until they are all we can think about. It uses the example of a little boy who has a fear of balloons and how this small fear has grown to becoming having no friends and being laughed at when he's scared. And you'll notice here that it uses a very visual representation of fear, so particularly the use of colour to show the boy's worries getting bigger. Colour coding is actually something that we use throughout the series to represent feelings visually. So red for angry, yellow for happy. And this nonverbal process can actually help children better recognise and identify how they are feeling. Next slide. In All About Diversity, with a wide range of topics from clothes and food to festivals and families, there is plenty for children to talk about as they find out what makes people different and unique, regardless of shape, size, age, gender, or ethnicity. And again, helpful notes for grown-ups on talking to children about diversity, resisting prejudice and discrimination of all kinds are included, as well as a really useful glossary at the back. Next slide. So very first questions and answers is the first in our series of question and answer Lift the Flap books, designed to educate young children aged 3+ about big topics. Now, we appreciate that flap books aren't always library friendly. However, we do pride ours on being extremely sturdy and durable. They are great for story time and interactive sessions, so there is flexibility on how these books can be used in different settings. For all our Q&A titles, we've worked very closely with a child clinical psychologist, Dr. Sasha Lily Lyons. Now, since 3-year-olds can be quite literal in their understanding of the world, our psychologist expert actually advised us to feature real people as our main characters and focus on everyday relatable scenarios. Next slide. So in What is Love, it shows children that love can be demonstrated in lots of different ways, whether that's actions or words. And next slide, you can see the flaps in action there. And next slide. In Why Should I Say Sorry, one of the main messages of the book is the fact that sorry is an important word, but it's not the full story. So if you just go to the next slide. It includes examples that might help grown-ups navigate tricky situations. For example, a child might need a cuddle first before they can actually say sorry. And finally, on the next slide, a spread example from Why Do I Sometimes Feel Sad, showing that crying can actually be helpful and happens for many different reasons, good and bad. Next slide. So for our first questions and answers titles for age 4+ children, we've actually used adorable animal characters to convey harder hitting scenarios in a gentle, age-appropriate way. These are interspersed with much lighter situations and also lovely touches of humour, as well as constructive advice on how to share, be kind, or deal with your feelings. And next slide, some spread examples here from What Are Feelings, showing what makes us angry using party hat wearing monkeys. Next slide. How can I be kind with different insects? And on the next slide, you can see under the flaps, there is an increase in text for slightly older children. Next slide. This title also has a lovely activity pack for pre-K and kindergarten, with one of the activities being to create a kindness sign, so great for activity sessions. And next slide. Finally, a spread from Why Should I Share? Next slide, please. So from the age of 6 and above, children begin to think in a less self-centered way and become more concerned about those around them. Our older questions and answers series is aimed at this age group, and our feelings titles explores wider issues of other people's feelings, as well as the science behind our emotions, and also encourages critical thinking. This book ends by stressing the importance of looking after your own feelings. In fact, a running theme throughout the book is the message that nobody's perfect. It's okay to make mistakes at times, and that it's important to be kind to ourselves as well as to others. Next slide. And on the spread example, you can see how more complex questions are used and also ideas for helpful activities for children to do. Next slide. So next up is our Miss Molly series. These are 32-page picture books, perfect for school starters. These books use the familiar setting of a school and a friendly grown-up called Miss Molly to communicate important social topics for children with Richard Scarry-esque illustrations that really bring the content to life. And I'll add here that there's just heaps of real psychological tips tucked into these books, but they wear them extremely lightly. Children will learn important concepts without necessarily realizing that they are. Next slide. So in School of Kindness, 3 naughty fox cubs find out how to be kind to others, kind to themselves, and also the planet. And what I love about the illustrations here is just how much there is to pore over on each scene. Children are excellent at spotting details that aren't immediately obvious, which I think adds a seek and find element to the story. Next slide. In School of Making Friends, Kerry the koala learns how to start conversations, take turns, and work through disagreements, as well as understand different kinds of friendship and how they can change and grow. And I think the addition of lots of speech bubbles here adds an almost comic strip element to the book, which can be fun for children to interact with as they take in scenes. I'm now going to pass you over to your second Sarah of the presentation, Sarah Rucker, who will talk to you more about some of our SEL-friendly books. Thank you.
Next slide, please. Hi, everyone. So Me and My Hair is a picture book that follows 7-year-old Kyra as she explains her afro hair to her friends. Next slide, please. Some of her friends who are not Black are curious about her hair, asking Kyra questions and touching it. And you can see on the top right, you know, the kids are interacting and she's like, hey, you know, I'm not a pet. This is what my hair is. Next slide, please. This narrative is based on the author's own experience of being one of the only Black girls at school. And while she didn't mind talking about her hair, she didn't like being poked and prodded. And you can see here the different kinds of hair that people have. And it actually is scientific information that's being given in this book, interestingly enough. Next slide, please. So this book explores the feeling that Kyra has of, you know, being a little bit different and having people be curious about her hair, along with other situations about hair and how it is worn from a ponytail to braids to naturally growing out, and to some who even cover their hair for personal or religious reasons. So we give a lot of examples here about different people and how they might wear their hair. Next slide, please. Oh, sorry, my apologies. Go back one. So this book explores the feelings along with other situations, and it's done with Usborne's signature style for nonfiction. Tons of facts about hair, hairstyles, and the people who wear them woven into an accessible narrative. It's quietly educational about race and culture while promoting acceptance and differences in a straightforward way. It gives kids a lot to learn and reflect on. And lastly, it's written by a Black author and Black illustrator, Kim Kenlock and Jessica Gibson. And it was also done in consultation with the Halo Collective, which is a group of young people in the UK who are fighting to end hair discrimination by bringing awareness to what hair discrimination actually is and looks like in different situations. Teaching resources will be available on the Usborne website in June. It contains activities and questions about what's in this book with writing and drawing prompts for further discussion. We will also have a future publication in this series called Me and My Brain about neurodiversity coming at some point in 2025 or early 2026. Next slide, please. I'm Not Very Afraid of the Dark is about many children are scared of the dark, and this clever picture book shows how the dark can be less scary than they think. Next slide, please. This book is a great way to engage kids about their fears by simultaneously showing empathy for their fear and slowly turning fear into giggles. This was also written to consider feelings that may be unexpressed and encourages children to share them. And Usborne has had feedback from teachers saying that they have used it as a discussion on fears in general. Next slide, please. Ingenious tiny cutout holes on the pages show the imagined monsters are really nothing to be afraid of. And this book doesn't magically do away with the fear of the dark, which is a realistic way to go about this, because it's okay to accept that you might be afraid. However, it does allow children to work on their framing and coping skills to become more resilient. This book was shortlisted for the UK Literacy Association Book Awards and is on sale December 3rd. Next slide, please. For sticker books, so we know that sticker books aren't a normal curriculum item, but we wanted to call these to your attention for giveaways or activities that you might host. We have 3 social emotional sticker books that cover common scenarios for little children, such as making and keeping friends, feelings, and starting kindergarten. Next slide, please. Each spread in these sticker books focuses on a concept and asks the child to place a sticker to accompany it. So this is a completed sticker slide, but almost all this slide was blank and the child has to put stickers on it. Each spread contains a lot of information, and it's almost like a picture book, but with stickers. And Usborne sticker books are truly one of the most beloved lines and are very popular. My Friends and Feelings are currently available, and Starting Kindergarten is available June 11th. Next slide, please. And lastly, we have the Huggy books. These are beautiful board books that show how hugs can make all the difference. The series was inspired by the lack of hugs and the desire for them during the pandemic, which made us all realize how much we thrive on social connection. Next slide, please. Ingeniously shaped pages on every spread show how different animals and monsters hug. The first spread shows the question about hugging. Next slide, please. And when you turn the page, the hug is completed. Bears and Dinosaurs Love Hugs are on sale now, and Monsters is on sale December 17th. Next slide. And lastly, we have a sneak preview of Mommies Love Hugs. This is the UK edition. We'll make it Mommies, but thank you very much. Next slide is our contact information. We appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, both Sarahs. Finally, we'll hear from Joe Stacy. Joe is a digital marketer for James Lorimer and Company. He resides in Toronto, Canada. Take it away,
Hi.
Joe.
Hi, everyone. So my name's Joe, as she just mentioned, I'm the digital marketer at Lorimer. Next slide, please. So just a little bit about us. So we're a small publisher based out of Toronto, and we've been publishing children's and teens books since 1975. We're usually dedicated to finding great authors and stories and sharing them. And our titles deal with contemporary social issues in ways that engage kids and teen readers. Because of this, they often have a lot of social emotional content and provide meaningful emotional learning by focusing on these contemporary issues. Next slide, please. Yep, so just going over a little bit about social emotional learning, as I'm sure everyone's aware, it covers self-management, self-awareness, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. So I've framed a number of our titles into these categories, but it is, without saying, a lot of our titles are fairly nuanced and kind of cover a range of these. Next slide, please. Yep, so I have put a kind of the basic categories here just so you can see them as quick reference. Next slide, please. Yep, so our first book is The Hoop and the Harm. So if you're looking for a really great book on self-management and managing your emotions, intended for an older YA audience, The Hoop and the Harm follows Udoka Clendon as he tries to reignite his passion for basketball after an incident on the court. He seeks mental health counseling, which obviously helps him connect through there and reconnect himself with, his passion. Next slide, please. If you're looking for a book on self-management for a little bit of a younger audience in the grades 7 and 8 through 9 range, Ace and the Misfits is a charming story of a newly landed immigrant, Ace finding his lost confidence through his new friends, misfits just like him, as he creates a new home in his new country. Next slide, please. For those looking for books on relationship skills, Stuck With You is a perfect choice that's been compared to Heartstopper by School Library Journal. It follows the main character, Ben, as they realize that their first judgments about a person are not always correct and sometimes lead to romance over the course of a train ride home from the city. Next slide, please. Luscious Love is another story built around relationship skills, and it follows Mina as she works her first summer job at a lingerie store and ends up finding romance in retail. This is a great book that also deals with the subject of body image. Next slide, please. For those looking for books about responsible decision-making, Out of Here by Leah Badea follows Elise as she must confront the decisions ahead of her as her life spirals due to her mother's opioid addiction. It's a really powerful book, and it's really about kind of taking responsibility for where your life is going to end up in the future. Next slide, please. This one is kind of a favorite of mine. It's in the literary tradition of The Outsiders, and it's set in the early 2000s on an Indigenous reserve. Cree Boy follows Josh as he must make life decisions on which path to take as he's confronted with whether or not to join the gang that his older brother and his father have joined and have obviously gotten into trouble with, or whether to take the path his mom has kind of put before him. Next slide, please. For those looking for books on social awareness and have a fondness for the 90s, One Summer in Vancouver follows Tom, a teen struggling to understand his sexual identity as he flees from Toronto to Vancouver to spend a summer with his out uncle, right in time for the Gay Games, which is kind of like the LGBTQ Olympics that were happening at the time. This is truly a book about finding your own community and deciding how that community is going to influence where you end up. Next slide, please. School Statue Showdown by David Starr follows AJ, who finds conflict in his community when a local Indigenous group demands that the local school statue be torn down and the name of the school changed. AJ delves into his family history. The founder of the town is his great-grandfather, and he must confront not only his own conceptions of what the city is actually like, but also its darker past and what's the actual truth of the situation. Next slide, please. Shades of Black by Carlos Anthony is a title which follows Ramiro, a sensitive kid who's just starting out at a inner city school. On his first few days, he's stuck with a gun in an incident in the school cafeteria, and he's faced with tough decisions in his community and what responsible decisions he can make as the police start targeting young Black men. Next slide, please. For those looking for books on self-awareness, Powwow Summer is about River. Teased about her Indigenous heritage as a young girl, she struggles with her identity until she spends a summer reconnecting with her Indigenous heritage and discovering new parts of herself that she didn't know she needed to connect with. Next slide, please. The Summer Between Us is a coming-of-age story that follows 18-year-old Adrian Carter as he graduates from high school and confronts difficult decisions about his future, and he must struggle with his own internal struggles regarding his eating disorder and where he fits into the world. This is very much a book about coming to terms with your own emotions and being aware of yourself. Next slide, please. Another book focused on self-awareness and introspection is Dance Hall Rebel, which follows Denise as she shares her dad's vibrant Caribbean musical legacy as a DJ, but is burdened by the homophobia that comes along with it. And she needs to find a new path for herself and for the music as well. Next slide, please. This one's a bit of a favorite of mine. If you're looking for a really fun romance novel based around self-awareness, Losing Hit Points is a great choice for those readers who really enjoy fantasy role-playing games. This book follows Journey as they reconnect and realize their feelings for their former friend over a game of Dungeons and Dragons after their friendship has ended because Journey's come out as trans. This is a romantic story filled with goblins, adventures, and the healing power of admitting your own mistakes. Next slide, please. So looking at our nonfiction, just a reminder about the kind of categories of social emotional learning. And looking at our Deal With It series books. Next slide, please. So Deal With It Ableism is a really great book filled with quizzes, graphic novel style illustrations, and different perspectives. It's designed to kind of help students understand ableism, where it comes from, and how to address it, whether or not they're the person being discriminated against, or even in the circumstance that they're the person doing the discrimination, and coming to the terms that, hey, maybe what I'm doing is not really a good thing to be doing. Next slide, please. Deal With It Biphobia, likewise, approaches things from a different perspective, which is biphobia. It does use the same sort of formatting, following Q&A, quizzes, graphic novel style illustrations, and taking on different perspectives as well. Next slide, please. So you can find us on social media, just so you know, at Lorimer Kids, and you can reach me directly at projectmanager@lorimer.ca. I do have a number of sample chapters for the various books that I've spoken about today. So if you'd like a sample chapter, feel free to reach out directly to me. If you are interested in ordering any of our titles, we distribute through Learner Publishing. I've put their information down there at the bottom to reach out as well. Next slide, please. Yep. And if you're looking at the chat, I'll be around for a few minutes, obviously at the end of our PowerPoint here. So feel free to ask any questions.
Thank you so much, Joe, and a huge thank you to all of today's presenters. Tomorrow, all attendees will receive an email containing links to today's slide presentation, title list, certificate of completion, and video recording. For more about Booklist webinars, be sure to visit www.booklistonline.com/webinars, where you can view archives of past webinars and register for upcoming ones, like those you see here. Staff training, in-services, local conference, Booklist can help. You can now request free copies of Booklist and Booklist Reader for upcoming staff training programs so you can help the next generation of library workers become readers advisory and collection development superstars. Scan the QR code on the screen, visit our website, or email info@booklistonline.com for more details. Thank you so much for joining us for today's webinar, and one more huge thank you to our panelists as well as our sponsors, Hachette, Charlesbridge, Usborne, and Lorimer. This concludes today's webinar. See you next time.